Hi, my name's Don Latarski, and welcome to lesson number 10 of Guitar Theory Illustrated. In lesson number 9, we talked about how to build major chords. We ended up with just barely starting to look into what happens when you add a seventh to a major triad. Well, let's pick up from there. When we stack another third on top of the major seventh chord, we get what's called a major ninth chord. The major ninth chord has 5 different notes in it. Now that makes it challenging to play on the guitar 5 different notes. It just cuts down on the number of fingerings that are available. So this is a good time to talk about what can be eliminated from a chord without doing any damage to the chord's personality. For me, I leave out the 5th most of the time in chords, unless it's easy to play. Now the 5th can be left out unless it's part of the actual personality of the chord. In other words, if your chord has a flat 5 or a sharp 5, you've got to keep that. But in this major ninth chord, the 5th is natural. It's not an altered 5th. So we can eliminate it if we want, if it's convenient. It's not a problem. The important tones to keep, though, are the 3rd and the 7th, and the last extension, which is the 9th. If I'm in a band, I may eliminate the root note from the chord too. I do it quite often. Let the bass player play the root. You don't need to do it. So let's take a look back again at the basic C major 7th chord and see if we can actually construct some type of a major ninth out of this position. We need a ninth. I'm just going to indicate the 9th with the 2nd because it's the same pitch. So that would be a whole step above the root. Well, there was a root there. That doesn't work out unless we eliminate the root. There's a root here, so we get up here, but then we're losing the 7th. Let's position the 7th somewhere else. How about right there? And we get rid of these notes, although we could leave the 3rd up there. But let's reduce it down to this. 1, 3, 7, and 9, same as 2. So basically, we're actually in the A form right now. Let me play C major, C major 7th, C major 9th. Notice that they all have the same basic personality. The major ninth maybe sounds a little bit jazzier. You would indicate the major ninth chord just as you would the major 7th. So it would be like C, if we're building it on C, C, delta, or MAJ 9. Now, we're up to the next extension, which is the 11th. The 11th is considered actually a non-harmonic tone in relation to a major chord. So it's not included very often. There is one exception. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But if the 11th is included in a major chord, and if you've got the 7th in there, potentially the 9th, it becomes a modified tone. It becomes a sharp 11. So it gets raised up a half step. Back to a 5-note chord again, even with the 5th gone. So what do we do now? Well, a couple of options. Remember, we're going to keep the 3rd. We're going to keep the 7th. We can get rid of the 9th if it's convenient. The sharp 11 has the same sound in the same interval location, shape, as a flat 5. Well, here's a flat 5. I got to keep the 3rd. So we're going to raise it up an octave. Sometimes this is called a major 7 flat 5. Sometimes it's called major 7 sharp 11. Major 7th, major 7 sharp 11. Now, if you're going to write that chord down for someone to play, you need to indicate that there is a sharp 11 in it. This is one good way to indicate that. C major 7, sharp 11. You could write C delta 7, sharp 11. Or if you wrote C major 7, flat 5, that gets the job done too. The last note, if we're stacking notes in thirds and forming major chords, would be the 13th. And there is such a chord as a major 13th. Well, we're back up to a very large chord. Technically, you can't play a major 13th chord on the guitar, right? If we had everything, that would be 7 tones. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, sharp 11, 13. Pretty tough. So let's get back to what's important. The major third, the major 7th, the 13, that's important. Everything else is icing on the cake after that. Let's see what we can do here with this basic shape we were working with. 1, 3's good, 7's good. Here's another 3, and here's a 13, way up here. That works. Here, I'll write it up on the board so you can check it out. In this chord form, I'm using a 6th in place of the 13th number. The 6 and the 13 have the same shapes. So that's the 13th chord. Now, could we have a sharp 11 in this chord? You bet we could. Let's put it back in there and see what it sounds like. See if you like this. Wow. It's pretty jazzy sounding. There are other types of major chords possible that are not all constructed by stacking intervals in a third. In fact, one of the most common ones is called a major 6th. The major 6th chord is basically a major triad, 1, 3, 5, with a 6 added onto it. Sometimes people would call this an add 6 chord. More commonly, it's just called major 6th. 1, 3, 5, 6. Now, how can you get away with this? Well, we saw just a moment ago that the 13th, which is the same sound as the 6th, fits in nicely with a major chord sound. So let's just tack it on. 1, 3, 6, 1. Let's check that out. 1, 3, 6, 1. If you want to double the third, there's a nice way to play it. I'm going to go back and forth between C major triad and C 6th. Notice that they sound very similar. C major triad, C 6th. Well, we could use them interchangeably, or we could use the C 6th as a variation, a momentary variation, on C major. This is a very useful application of chords and chord variations. So we know that we can play a major 7th, major 7 flat 5. Well, that's pretty jazzy, but we could go back and forth very easily between a major triad, a major 6th, and a major 7th, and maybe even a major 9. Let's check out just some sounds for that. C major triad, C major 7th, major 9, major 6th. So, what people will do who have an appreciation for this kind of stuff, or just actually a good ear, and they experiment, is they start making up little melodies which occur inside of their chord progressions. Something like this. That's a little bit more interesting than just playing maybe a C major triad. That's a good place to stop for now. There are more possibilities when it comes to combining notes to make major chords. In our next lesson, we're going to check out some of those. So thanks for stopping in. See you later.